welcome in another episode of the Captain and Madden Show, hitting the airwaves October 17th, 2025. We are coming at you from our perspective. Mike Madden on my side of things, the Captain Michael Corby on his side. Captain, how's your day going so far?
My day is going all right. It's finally starting to feel a little bit like fall, a little nip in the air. It's October.
It's October.
Can't say I'm I know a lot of people love to cling on to those 80-degree days and still putting the air conditioner on. I'm not one of them.
Nope.
I do enjoy I'm not going to say sweater weather, but sweatshirt weather.
Okay. Right.
I'm not a 50-year-old woman from Long Island. I know that's shocking to some people. Since we are not a video podcast,
It's true.
I will break it to everybody. I am not a 50-year-old woman from Long Island. I'm just a 40-year-old, almost 50-year-old grumpy man from New Jersey.
The some people might be able to hear in my voice. I'm, trying to deal with a little bit of a cough, a little bit of a sniffles, because yes, the drop in temperature, the sudden drop in temperature has made me a little bit, it's activated some of my sinus issues. So I apologize if I cough into the microphone directly. Remember, I'm only getting myself sick. I'm not getting anybody else sick. So
It will not come through the speakers.
Don't come at me. I also have a big pop guard on this anyway, so we're fine. Everybody's fine. Some things to get into before we start this episode. Just came across breaking news. I don't think, do we have a breaking news sound drop?
Do you have like a glass breaking sound effect?
No, let me see what I have. Nope, that's not going to work. That's not going to work in this case. Maybe that'll work. All right, so that's going to be our breaking news sound effect, by the way. Almost like a tap dance. Da, 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 da. This is going to...
Why don't you just play the sad trombone music?
Yeah. No, we don't want that either.
No.
I have these sound effects. I still don't have them marked, but... Maybe this is it. Sad news report. Famed guitar player from Kiss, Ace Frehley, has passed away. You said that you read that he was on ICU. He had a brain bleed.
They basically said he was rushed to the hospital with a brain bleed, and that he was in intensive care, critical condition, and then when we popped on to start recording this, you're the one that broke it to me that Ace Frehley was no longer walking the earth. It's sad. I think he was in his late 70s, right?
74, it says.
74.
74.
Sadly, for me and you, and for most of the people that do listen that are in our age bracket, we're going to start getting into that where, a lot of people, celebrities that die, we're going to be like, I know who they are.
It's
not like years ago when, somebody would break in and be like, oh, so-and-so passed away. And someone would have to explain to us that, like, they were a huge Broadway star in the 40s and 50s and blah, blah, blah. Like, no.
He made 1,000 cowboy pictures back in the day, right? Yeah.
I did, it's one of those where I got to try to explain to my kids who Ace Frehley is, or I got to explain who Diane Keaton is, or whoever, the celebrity, that like, no, like they were a big deal. Like there's going to be a lot of people sad about this.
That's true. I don't know. Also, Diane Keaton passing away this week, and there was a post. Nick Mangold, former Jet, who we mentioned in our all Captain of Madden team. He's got a degenerative disease that's affecting his kidneys. So he just put a social posting out that he's soliciting kidney donations if you're the same blood type and same attributes as him. I didn't get all the details on it, but
Yeah, he's had the degenerate thing for about 20 years now.
yeah, yeah.
But I guess it's getting to the point where I guess if he doesn't get a kidney soon, he's going to have to go to dialysis and stuff. So,
Oh no, he's already doing the dialysis. That's that's the case. But
the good news is if you donate a kidney, you can save a really good guy. The bad news is the reward is you're going to get Jet season tickets.
yeah,
So
we're going to open that up to the any of the members and the fans of the Off the Cuff Stuff Network, as it was opened up to many other fan bases. So anybody that listens to our podcast who wants to donate, look up the I don't think it's a GoFundMe as much as it is just an outreach and trying to source.
yes.
Not only for Nick, but for anybody else that's in need of a kidney. I didn't know this until I was reading a little bit more into it, and I was hearing Joe Thomas was actually on another podcast talking about he's known Mangold. Obviously, they're almost the same age, and they kind of played at the same time in football. So this affected him during his playing time, and for a guy who played at a high level like Mangold, he couldn't take Advil or Tylenol because that affected his kidneys, and that would create an imbalance of and a flare up. So he had to go out there, play every week, probably take a shit ton of punishment, and there really was no way that he could take an over the counter pain reliever or anything that was even prescription level. So that's a tough man, and our hats are off to him. And I had a new level of respect for Nick Mangold, knowing that about his career. So, yeah.
Well, luckily for him that he did, was not unable to take the Tylenol, because then not only would it affect his kidneys,
it's true.
He also would have been autistic.
Yes. Well, no, that's only women.
Oh,
Yeah, it doesn't affect men.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Take all Tylenol you want then.
yeah, Tylenol and up. So so I guess we'll get into our topic for this week. It's not just health news from around the celebrity world. Our topic this week, we're going to be talking about let's say the rise and fall of the record industry, and more about the fall of the record industry and what happened to our beloved record industry in the last 25 years. It's an interesting debate to have. It's an interesting topic to sort of peel away some of the layers, because at one point, if we're going back to, or I should say back or around the peak of the record industry, you and I know this very well, because as we covered on this podcast before, we both worked in separately and together in record retail for a number of years. So we've ran these stories. We've been part of these conversations about breaking artists and about, particular, hot properties or bands that were juggernauts in our days. In particular, the peak year, I don't know if you know this, but the year in recorded history that sold the most records in the United States was 2000. There were 785 million albums sold in the United States that year.
And then the next year, 700 of them were resold back to us as used CDs.
That may be true. The highest selling album of that particular year was, do you know it?
I'd take a guess and say it was maybe the second Eminem CD, the Marshall Mathers.
No. There's actually No Strings Attached by NSYNC. 9.9 million records sold that year.
Well, 99 into 2000 would have been, that's your Backstreet Boys, your Britney Spears, Uh, Eminem, was
No,
a
he was
big
there.
sell.
Yeah, he was part of it. Yeah.
You have that. I would say TRL influenced
Mm-hmm.
on the record industry.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. If you would have gave me a chance, I probably would have said 94 or 95 would have been the most. But also, I would think with 2000, you are having a lot of the, I guess the technology. So you probably have a lot of shit. Sorry.
Oh, we can curse.
Records.
You're allowed to curse on this.
That's being remastered or reissued or stuff that like, oh, this is now recorded or re-recorded in some sort of. So you probably have people go. I'm sure there was probably a Pink Floyd reissue or
okay.
a Led Zeppelin.
That makes sense.
Or those bands that constantly reissue, who are always trying whatever the latest, improvements in recording. Technology comes out. There are these, significant band, that will go and reissued or remaster or whatever it is, and you'll buy Dark Side of the Moon for the 8th time on a different platform, and that was counted as record sales. So.
Yeah. But it's just interesting, like that being the peak year, and as I was doing research for this, a lot of what I'm looking at is I looked at the top sellers in that particular year, and even the years in and around it, it's like this makes total sense. Like all of these acts were geared towards a younger audience. So you had teenagers that were buying it in droves. Parents are buying it for them. For like younger kids, like these were, around Christmas time, you would get handed a list, and that basically that parent would have like all of these CDs that their kid wrote down that they want for Christmas, and they were getting every single one, right? And maybe this isn't a topic that I want to like really bridge open, but the marketing was very much aimed at, we have an impressionable teen audience, and let's say early 20s, that are watching TRL, as you said, and like this, it kind of like it's a different level of like a mania that was around. Like anybody that was on TRL, anybody that was like in that zeitgeist of like marketed towards like the teens and the early 20-year-olds. It didn't matter. So it wasn't like, all right, I'm buying all the boy band because I'm a 13-year-old girl. I'm buying all these like boy band albums because I love the boy bands and they're cute and they sound great and they have pop songs and I can dance to them. They were also buying Limp Bizkit. They were also buying Eminem. They were also buying Destiny's Child. And if you got onto a platform like TRL, that opened up all of their eyes because all of that focus was there. There's really no social media at all. You're online. Maybe you're in chat rooms, like looking stuff up or like learning a little bit about bands or acts or tours that you want to go see. But everything was garnered towards the retail business to make you go buy those singles or those albums and invest in that sense. So when you're looking at that being a peak year, they're firing on all cylinders. And when you're looking at even a number like as astronomical as 785 million in a particular year, it wasn't too far off like the year before that, the year after that. They were all sort of compressed into that time frame. So when you kind of go inside the numbers a little bit further, you really see what the big difference is between those numbers and 2024.
Well, if I could jump in before you start talking about 24, I think one of the things that also is a contributing fact to those numbers, record numbers of 2000 and around that era. It's also around that era where record companies begin to eliminate singles,
True.
almost
Yeah.
forcing people. Whereas prior to that, for years, it was this person would release a single, you would get the buzz from the single, then their album would come out,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually, if by then maybe they would release a second song, and that would get people to buy record sales. Now
True.
you're having, the conversation me and you probably had millions of times. No, I'm sorry, the Cisco song is not on single.
Yeah,
You have to
right.
buy it. And everybody going, well, why do I have to buy the whole album for one song? I think that was also a big contributing factor to the album sales. So, which, I'm sure we'll talk later. I think was also partly begins the contributing fact as to why people stop going to stores. But
Yeah,
we'll get into that later.
Yeah, right. But to your point, there was like that, dare I say, that teasing of, hey, there's a video that came out. There's a single for this. Especially for a new artist, those singles were very important. And somebody that wasn't like known as a solo artist, whatever it was like, yeah, we're gonna have a single out for 6 months, and then the record's gonna come out, and it's gonna be great. They were closing those windows, but it was more or less on the artists that had their second album out or they're established already because they had a year. Remember, like some of these artists are putting out an album this is when they really started to get like very prolific with their releases. So it would be, if it's not 12 months, there was a new record coming out from an artist back to back within an 18-month cycle. So you barely had time to register and truly understand and consume the first album, and then their second album's right on the heels of it. For better or worse, and I think they were harnessing it on short attention spans by saying, here's our small window that this person's going to be popular. We have to do everything we can to capitalize on this as quickly as possible. Put out, hit us with the debut record and make it as great as possible, but get ready to go back into the studio and start.
That also, the thing that helped with the prolificness of it was also, for the most part, you take your Destiny's Child, Britney Spears, NSYNC, those type of band or groups or whatever that were selling a lot of records. They weren't really writing their songs. So while they're out touring and doing promotional work and all that other stuff, you have a group of writers that are sitting back there that are writing songs for them.
True.
So that when the tour does stop, they go right to it. It's not like the early, beginning 90s where a lot of what, you had bands that wrote songs together, or, artists that were singer-songwriters, and which were the main driver of record sales, where when they came off the tour, it was like, all right, you got to give me like 6 months or whatever to like,
or give me a year to put another thing together, right?
Yeah, I got to start writing and all this other stuff. That whole process was gone because the minute they got off the road, hey, the team are like, yeah, guess what? You get like 2 days rest because you're back in the studio.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
We've been writing.
We're putting this together for you. We've hired the right people to work in the studio for you. So all you need to do is just come in, use your gifts that you're given, talk to your choreographer, and get ready for the music video and onward and upward. Excuse me. But getting back to what I was saying before, so all right, so that was what we were looking at as a snapshot in 2000. So then you go to 2024, the best-selling album, and I say that because this was pared down to, and it's also a little bit skewed because of full album that's bought through a streaming service now counts on this for some reason. But 2024 was Taylor Swift, Tortured Poets Department, 3.5 million units sold. Now think to yourself, okay, NSYNC in 2000. I don't think NSYNC in 2000, as popular as they were, I don't think they have the clout that a Taylor Swift does. And I get it. Like, Taylor Swift's like, 15 years into her career at this point, and she's an industry unto herself. But the amount of people that are aware of, that follow, that consume her content is far-reaching, even at their peak, what NSYNC was doing. So why don't the numbers line up? One of the reasons why the numbers don't line up is that streaming is far more on demand these days, and directly marketing it through social media and directly marketing things through viral campaigns is so much more powerful now than it was in 2000. So, and there's less fish in the sea at this point. So a lot of the attention when Taylor Swift releases an album, the earth shakes. People go crazy over it, but they don't go out and buy it. They just listen to it through their streaming service or for free, and they make their decision, right? And then it becomes, the thing that people want to talk about on, nightly news or late night talk shows or podcasts or blogs or whatever it is. It just becomes sort of like all encompassing. I think in this episode, what we're kind of tasked to do is to fill in the blanks as to how we went from selling 785 million units and having that peak year be 2000 to 25 years later, 25 years later, and you don't see the number of units even close to what they were moving at that time. And from our own experience, like where the disconnect started to happen, how it I guess the consumer element of that changed.
This is what we'll be discussing tonight on the Captain and Madden show.
Right. Yeah. So, is it all streaming? Is that like, can we shut this down like at the 25-minute mark and say that it's streaming has killed the record industry and the record retail industry, more importantly?
I don't think it's the primary. I think it's a very big contributing factor, but there are other things I think that go along with it. I don't think it's just okay. Well, now because it wasn't. I don't think it's the only thing that contributed to the death of, if you want to say, the record store.
Yeah.
I think there were other things that contributed to it. And I think a lot of it was self-inflicted. And then which ultimately caused, let's just say it, the beginning, the if you want to say the death shot or at least a contributing, whatever would be is Napster.
Okay.
That was the beginning of, that was like the first sign that should have really sparked hey, we have a really big problem. And I don't think retail or the record label, both sides of it, I don't think reacted fast enough. And but there were movements that they made before that ultimately led to people just saying, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna whatever, like, I don't give a shit, I'm gonna download it for free, I'm gonna or I'm gonna start listening to stuff. I'm not going into a music store. I'm gonna just start listening to stuff down online. So but I think there's other things that led to that before, but that is the major, if you want to say that's the shot to the head, I think it might be the shot to the head, but there's a lot of other um, wounds that happened along the way.
So here's what's funny, and I'm glad you brought up Napster, because I do think I think that's a major turning point in all of this starting. And to your point, it sort of rocked the industry, but it should have rocked it in a way where the labels turned around and said, all right, let's look at this as our new open channel to to market and allow consumers to listen online at a charge, right? And see, Napster was doing it for free. They were doing it on a download by download basis, which was, and then you could burn it to a CD. So when you're sort of like taking that at the root of this is a disruptor and this is a disruptive element, and I think that was one of the problems, was that the labels went on defense mode, and they took the stance that Lars Ulrich did, where he's like, hey, somebody's listening to and creating their own Metallica albums because somebody's putting the stuff online for free. How do we stop this and shut this down? And it was a big deal about piracy, right? So, and to a certain extent, like, they did the right thing with that, but LimeWire and all these other download sites sort of popped up in the wake of that. So if the industry had just gotten to, what was that kid, Fanning? I think that was his name. Just it got to him and said, like, hey, what's your idea? What's your algorithm and what's your idea? And like, how can we help you curate this and use your insight and help curate this into something that we can charge the consumer for, allow the artist to get their cut, and then we all make money. They squandered all that because they took it as, well, we're booming. Our business is booming here, and we're breaking new artists and we're making stars, and we have all of our control. All of our assets are poured into this, and this is an affront to us. And they shouldn't have seen it as an affront. They should have seen it as a challenge of, how do we get more in tune with that? So just as the physical media evolution was record albums, vinyl records, to 8-tracks, to cassette tapes, to CDs, it should have been to either preloaded or streamable or downloadable capture items, which they tried, and to varying degrees of success. But I think they were 2 years off the jumping point at that point. And really what Napster did at that time was, I don't think it was a death shot at that time, but they sounded an alarm, and the industry, the labels, even the retail people just said, let's put the pillows around our ears and just tune this out. We're going to figure out a way to make this work differently.
Sean Parker was the guy that created Napster.
Was he? Okay. All right. I thought there was another Fanning kid, but whatever. He might have been just the one that went to court with him. So,
yeah.
But
but they were missteps before Napster. I would say one that I had already talked about, the elimination of the single,
mm-hmm.
or basically phasing out of. I mean, you and I both worked in a record store. When I started, when you would get your shipment of singles, that was like an all-day project. Was
mm-hmm.
Going through all of them, separating them out, pricing them, all that stuff. Towards the end of, there wasn't, you used to get your own shipment box that said singles.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there really wasn't any.
It was a lower priority. Yeah.
Lower priority, because the record industry was like, why sell something at $1.99 or $3.99 when we can eliminate that and have them buy the full album.
Yeah.
At
higher margins.
Mall stores are $18.99.
Right. It's costing us almost the same. Yes.
It's costing us almost the same to make a single as it is the full album. Let's eliminate it.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was at that time, like I had mentioned, there were a lot of single artists, like, and you're now forcing them to buy a full album, which they're kind of sitting there going, I only like the one song. I had to buy all this other shit. Which then, when something like Napster pops up, if you're somewhat of an age where you're, I don't want to say tech savvy, but if you could go on and download something and burn it to a CD, which at that time was not exactly the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell are you going to go spend $20?
Yeah.
When you could put 20 songs on a burnable CD of all these artists and bands that you like.
True.
For free.
True. And that's I see that should have been a solution to begin with. And so right there, through your train of thought and your examples, right there, you've solved the singles problem. What the label should have done was they should have figured out a way to get this stuff consumable online, use the blank CD industry, partner up with them, and say, hey, go on the Warner Music website, find the singles for your favorite artists, and if you have the capability, we'll give you a tutorial on how to burn them for a fee of 99 cents per song or 49 cents per song. You can burn, and then it's like just create a value in it. The consumer themselves would have to buy the blank CDs and have that on their home computer, and that would have been the easiest way to partner up with the guys from Napster and these infancy streaming sites and said that's the technology. So right there, like that's one solution that they could have used that they didn't use. We're not telling you can get the full album. You would still be directed to your local record store or this mail-in, Columbia House site type service, and you can buy the full record from here, blah, blah, blah. So that would have been the easiest way to do it. But they pivoted, partnered up with Apple. First, like that was the first site that truly embraced on-demand single or album sales was Apple Music. And Apple Music did a great job with it. The problem was that Apple Music's catalog was only compatible with your Apple, your iPod technology. And the iPod technology was priced way above market entry points at that point. So you're spending $200 to $300 on an iPod so you can have your storage capacity. Put that in the hands of a longtime music fan, and that longtime music fan is like, now I want to get I have this bookcase full of CDs that I've collected. Yeah, I can still listen to those in my car and on my stereo at home and in these different scenarios, but I like the portability of this iPod. But now I've got to rebuy all of this stuff in the format that Apple wants me to put it in there, or figure out a way to get these CDs onto my computer to move them. I just remember it being such a pain in the ass to load up iPods that although they were convenient once you got it set, that's a days-long process, multiple days-long process to get everything you wanted to. And then good luck if you don't have enough capacity on that iPod. Now I got to upgrade and spend another $200, $300 for a new one. So it took the leap, but it was still flawed in the way that it was set up for the consumers. Because consumers, they stopped walking to the record store at that point, and they said, all right, Apple Music's going to have it for me. I'm listening on my iPod now.
Well, I think I'll disagree with you a little bit on one thing. I don't think the iPod and Apple Music and all that were marketed or towards. See, there's music fans that are. I hear a song on the radio. I see a video on MTV. Whatever it is, I'm in the club and I hear a song and I want to go out and I want to get that song.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get that person or I want to get that type of music. Then there are I really like a band or I really like an artist. I listen to the full album. I'm an albums person.
Right.
Those people, I think, were still going to, at that time, still going to record stores or some variation of whatever was left of record stores. So somebody who, you think of the character in High Fidelity, somebody who has like their whole apartment, I don't have furniture, but I have storage units all over the place with all of my records.
Yeah.
And I don't think those people were ever really going to get into trying to convert all that into their iPod. I think the iPod was still towards what drives the music industry, what drives the record store industry for a very long time is the people that hear the song and want it, or hear like whatever it is, and like that's who was buying an iPad. That's who was loading it up with, okay, I'm going to put the 4 songs that I like from 38 Special on here. I'm not going to go and buy every catalog, all 7 of their live albums and blah, 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 and put that on. Like, so I think while it did solve part of the problem where like, okay, you could go on Napster and you could download a version of whatever, but the quality isn't the best because it's been uploaded from. This is coming right from the record label.
Right.
This is, the sound quality is the best. You put it on, your Apple Shuffle or whatever it is. There's not going to be that thing of like, oh, one's going to be really low and I'm going to have to turn it up to hear it. Yeah. And then the next song kicks in and now I'm fucking deaf because it's at ear piercing volume. Like,
yeah, they EQ'd them. Yeah. Yeah.
You EQ them very well where, so you're giving them the opportunity to get the best quality sound of the version that they hear wherever they hear it from. And it was 99 cents for a song.
Yeah.
You could download a whole album for $9.99 or whatever it was. Most of the people I think that probably bought full albums of that type of stuff were probably greatest hits or whatever. But anyway, so that's where I think like the people that were album people were still going to I don't think they were really geared towards until later on when iPods were having ridiculous amount of, you could fit 3 gigs or 100 and something, you could actually probably fit somebody's music collection or damn near close to it. But in the beginning when, it was, I remember when people were losing their mind when the first 1 gig, Apple player came out and it's like, oh my God, like it's not, I have like thousands of songs on here, not just like, 150 songs or whatever it is.
That's that's an interesting point. So I think like that's another subgenre to sort of fall into, like, I guess to compare to now, like there are still people that go out and buy albums, but they're collectors. Like they're music collectors. I think if you go to a record store, and again, good luck finding one, because they've been flushed out of the malls. Where if we're talking about the 90s and the early 2000s, you walked into a shopping mall anywhere in any part of the country, and there would be 2 or 3 record stores in there, at least 2, sometimes 3. Whether they were the owned by the same company or competing chains, there was, and yes, that sort of like trend chasing public was what they did a lot of their marketing towards. But when it started to shift and it was easy to consume online, it was in the hands of the collector, the people that are seeking out something that was rare, or something that like, oh, I never got that album, or like this band that I really love, you just put out their 13th album and I can get it in stores. There was that shift back to away from CD and back to vinyl too. Like, as far as like making something more of a collector's item, labels were putting out like limited edition vinyl, or they were doing like, even still in the CD days, they were doing like the souped up version of an album, that had extra content on there, or it had video that you could play on your DVD player. Like, so they were still trying to like kind of create opportunities and avenues for music collectors to chase that down and go after it. And it wasn't the heartbeat of the industry anymore, though. And I think that's the sort of like the sacrificial lamb in the whole thing, is that the physical media became niche. It became like, here's a cutesy thing that, it's a quirk that I have, is like, I'm a music collector, and look at all, like, I've been collecting, I've had CDs for 20 years. Like, look at the collection of CDs I have. Now I've got this thing of vinyls, and like, sometimes you'd call those people hipsters, but it just became a little bit more of a, I guess like a personality quirk in some ways for music fans than it was something that was driving the industry. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but what are your thoughts?
I think there was always there always were hipsters or musical snobs. I think that was always, I think for you and I, who worked in a chain, that sometimes, like, we were kind of looked at like, it's not a really cool record store. Like, yeah, you sell CDs and stuff, but you're not a record store. Like,
true.
Because we weren't allowed to have long hair. We couldn't have piercings. We had to be in a uniform. Like, we weren't wearing our own shit, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
Or even like early on, like when I worked at Record Town, I had to wear a shirt and tie. You don't wear a shirt and tie in a record,
Right.
Better, worse when later on when I'm working at Coconuts and I'm wearing a bright yellow polo shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
well.
So there was always like that. If you went to a record store, you went to Vintage Vinyl, you went to Jack's, and if you went in looking for whatever the top 40, there was always that, go to the mall.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is if you want, Bell and Sebastian, you come here. You want Nickelback, go to the fucking mall.
Right. Yeah.
Or go, there was always like that.
It's a class system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what I think, I hate to get into it, but that was also one of the kind of another part of the demise of it, was that there was like a snobbiness, and it kind of, you can't alienate part of your clientele and expect to ever stay in business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're always gonna, well, I'm not gonna go to this place because anytime I walk in there, it's the same 6 or 7 people working, and they if you ask them where something is, you get an attitude, or you get like, that type of deal. So, so now those people that used to be embarrassed about going in and asking, hey, do you have the new Pink CD? and then have to hear with a bunch of shit. Well, now you could just do it at home.
Yeah.
You can, you can either do two things. You can either download it and put it onto your iPod or your MP3 player, or you can order it off the web, the internet, and have it delivered to your house. And I don't even have to leave. I don't even have to leave.
Yeah.
I don't have to be worried about dealing with the snobby attitude that I get at Vintage Vinyl because I like, whatever. And they're playing some sort of loud, like ridiculous industrial fucking techno pop, whatever. And because you're not listening to that, you get attitude. So
yeah. I don't know. To a certain extent as well, I think the boom in the industry made it so places outside of normal space all of a sudden became havens for people that were trying to buy especially popular music, right? The top 40 or the Billboard Top 200 albums were at Best Buy they were at Best Buy. You could buy them at grocery stores. You could buy them at convenience stores or pharmacy places. Like they were kind of inescapable. So yeah, if you were like really into music, you went to a record store and you dealt with, the varying degrees of, overly snobby clerks because you were looking for something that was a little bit different than what you could find now in the wild everywhere else. So even though like you and we were part of that, we ran those mall entity record stores, I still sought refuge in the hipper stores because maybe that is the type of stuff, because I'm a different kind of fan. Maybe that's the type of stuff that I want to be smartened up on and learn a little bit about. Or I've done my own research and I know I can only get these bands' albums in those spaces. Now, and this is why it's such it was kind of a double-edged sword, because although there are still pockets of the hipper record stores that still exist, they were killed faster than the mall stores or the average retail spaces that were starting to carry music, because it's a luxury item and it's a tack on at a Best Buy.
Right.
It's a tack on at the grocery store. It's a tack on at these other avenues that were selling, the top 200 records. And you didn't care what the catalog of that band was. All right, maybe I'll find something that I know my dad doesn't have so I can buy it as a gift for Christmas. But for the most part, your people that were chasing down something that was special lost that just as fast when the record industry cratered, because the labels took the inventory away and they shrunk the output that they were sending. And these smaller stores couldn't survive because they couldn't keep up with, they had stuff that wasn't selling because people could buy it online or people could download it, and that shrunk their audience as well. So, and I love to walk into like the Jack's Music in Keyport in Red Bank is still alive and kicking. Maybe not as successful as they were in the 90s, but they're still out there. But if you go through their racks, it's like a third of what they used to have.
Right.
Everything is really shrunk down. So as much as you want to say, like, it's got to be like I think the point that I was making, forgive me for starting that sentence the wrong way, but the point that I was making is that now it's really become the collector's world, and the niche collector's world more specifically, that keeps them in business. And maybe they shouldn't have been as snobby to people, 20, 25 years ago, who were coming in and saying, hey, I just want to, I'm here shopping for a couple different people, but it'd be nice if you had like, a top 40 section or like a hits of today section. And then, obviously they, you know, the people that were running the stores and the owners of those stores were trying to keep a independent sensibility, and they turned their nose up on it. If they embraced it, they would have had some solutions to keeping it alive at its most dire parts in the 2000s, in the mid 2000s especially. What are you a Spotify subscriber?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you pay the, what is it, $12.99 a month now?
Yeah, I do
No commercial.
I do I do the family plan, so I think it's like close to 20, but I think I'm allowed up to 5 different people to.
Okay. Right.
So,
yeah.
So basically, my family all has a login to Spotify.
Okay.
And
All right.
I pay for it.
All right. Now, I think
I do not. That's the only. So, I do not have a Apple Music.
yeah.
I don't even think I stopped with the satellite, and the only other like streaming, I guess you would kind of say, is called Nugs.net.
Okay.
Which is kind of like a jam band.
Oh, okay.
They have
Yeah.
certain you can listen to a band's studio stuff, but a lot of it is like live shows and stuff like that. So there's a lot bands that are like a lot of them are jam bands, but there are Pearl Jam's on there, Springsteen's on there, Metallica, bands that are known for their live acts that kind of like change their set lists and don't just do the same show every night.
Okay.
They're all part of that. So those are basically my primary.
I see. Okay. So then
forms of music.
So then, circling back to this, my question is, and I think this will open up another element to this. When you first subscribed, like Nugs.net sounds like something that's completely different. Like it's more concert driven and kind of a live, like a look into live music. But if you're on Spotify and you're fishing around there, you've got your created and your curated playlists for the most part that you're listening to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's offering you enough to discover new music through Spotify?
See, here's kind of like my thing that I might have been saving it for another part of another. Here's the bad thing with Spotify, where I'm sure there's some sort of algorithm that's involved in it.
Of course.
It doesn't always necessarily, just because I'm listening to, say, the Rolling Stones, like it's gonna suggest like, hey, listen to, and they're gonna put 5 other bands that were part of the British invasion that aren't necessarily really like the Rolling Stones. It's just they were from Britain and they came out at the same, like it's gonna tell me the Kinks, it's gonna tell me the Who, it's gonna tell me
the Beatles.
The Beatles,
Yeah,
or maybe
yeah.
the Hollies or somebody like, and it's just kind of like, if I'm listening to the Stones, like I'm going to want something that's going to sound more like the Stones, and those bands don't sound like the Stones. There just happen to be they all came out at the same time. They're all from Britain, and they were all considered the British invasion. You know what I mean? It's same thing as like if I'm listening to Pearl Jam, my other suggestions are going to be other Seattle bands that came out in the 90s.
Yeah, Stone
Not
Temple
bands
Pilots,
that really
right?
sound
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So
that's,
here's
that's
what's
kind of like the bad thing is that
Yeah.
it doesn't say it. There's never like a, hey, you're listening to Dawes. Like here's another cool band that sounds like that. Like it's whoever was popular at that time. Yeah, it doesn't really offer you, like, if you're looking for new music, unless you know it going into it, like you've done your research or you saw somebody somewhere, like Spotify really isn't the best at like matching either new music or other music that what you're listening to.
So
I don't think it's really that great.
One of the things that I'll point out is if you listen to the Stones and it suggests all the other British Invasion bands, that's probably more because the people who are listening to the Rolling Stones a lot on Spotify also listen to The Who. So they look at all of these playlists that people put together, and they don't take into consideration your musical acumen or necessarily the taste that you have. What they are doing, it's a larger entity. So they're saying, like, and you're right, a lot of it has to do with geography and the time frame that band was active or when they were at their height. They're always going to suggest that. I would challenge you to kind of look up a band that started more recently and see how well they do with the algorithm on that. Right. Because when you're looking at, obviously, like, if you're using an example of a classic rock band from 60 years ago, the majority of the people that are going to go on Spotify to listen to that are people that are older in age, that are familiar with, hey man, I'm done listening to the Stones for now. What's the next suggestion? Oh, okay, The Who. Yeah, I'll listen to some Who for a little while. Or yeah, cool, I'll listen to, haven't heard the Beatles in a bit. Like, so it's very much like at the convenience of the overall general audience that's matched up to. It's not unlike when we used to do our monthly or weekly, floor plans, and it would be like, all right, create an end cap of British Invasion artists, and you'd lug out the same British Invasion artists and put them on the end cap that you were like, here's, you put the Who in the one spot, the Beatles here, the Kinks here, da-da-da-da-da, maybe Herman's Hermits get in there, and then they give you a couple free spots to like put in a few that people might not know about. So we were doing that curating for the directive of our higher-ups and the record industry as a whole. Whoever bought that advertising space was basically saying, like, hey, get us onto the end cap there, or get us into a high-profile traffic spot so that we can sell back catalog. So that's what's very similar. So that as you said that, I thought to myself, well, if there are newer artists, they kind of nail the newer artists better than they nail the classic rock or even like the old pop singers. Like, it just seems like they're just dead set. If you look up Billy Joel, they're going to give you Elton John. They're going to give you like Jim Croce. They're going to give you James Taylor and Springsteen. And it's like, well, maybe give me an artist today that reminds you of Billy Joel. Like, I don't think that there isn't. Everything is driven off of like download numbers and algorithm, rather than having somebody that's the brains behind this that's going to say, oh yeah, like Andrew McMahon is a great like singer, songwriter, piano player. He does it in a little bit more like, maybe emo or alternative rock sense, but like I would say, because of the style of music, he might fit in with a Billy Joel a little bit more. So I might suggest that to somebody that's listening to Billy Joel, but that's because I'm using a different part of my brain than what an algorithm is gonna kick out. So I think in general, that's what they're missing, is that like take a chance feeling or take a chance mentality that you get when you're walking into a record store. You used to walk into a record store and somebody would say to you, they're buying for themselves. They're like, hey, I really liked the last 2 Pearl Jam albums. Is anybody else like that out there? And you would say, all right, here's 3 artists that I can recommend. And they're not from Seattle. They're basically like, that's your opinion. I think they should hire smarter people. And dare I say, maybe people who used to be A&R reps at all of these big labels, and let them contribute to what maybe they do it and these people are just sort of robotically lazy. But that's my drawback, is that they falter when it comes to helping me discover new music. Plus, it's like there's an option. I think like they give me my like discoveries for the week, and a lot of the discoveries for the week are stuff that I already have on other playlists. And it's like, just look at my library of stuff. So,
well,
you're just changing the order.
Like, there is a thing where it's like, I guess now it's changed. You know, when you and I worked in a music store, new release day was Tuesdays. Apparently now it's Fridays.
Fridays, yeah.
And you know, I'll get the thing that pops up with, here's all the new releases for this week, but it's basically everything off my playlist. You know, so it will tell me like, okay, there's a new Pete Yorn CD that came out, or he has a new single that was released, or whatever. But it's not telling me like what you're saying. Like, it's not telling me, all right, there's a new Pete Yorn single, and you should check this cat out because he kind of sounds or is similar or whatever. Even though you don't have it in your library or any of your playlists.
Yeah.
Here's, you know, it's gonna.
Listeners also liked, and then it gives you a few of those, right?
It's going to be like, oh, there's a new Jack Johnson, or there's a, you know, Jack Johnson's on so and so's new album, so that since I have a Jack Johnson song on one of my playlists, it's going to tell me, oh, it's not going to look. I don't think it does a good enough job of looking at what it's looking at who I'm listening to, not what I'm listening to.
Yeah, right. That's. But I dare I say, if there wasn't even that suggestion, I think there'd be less and less people discovering stuff on their own. I think with especially the younger generation, the Gen Z, there's a curiosity, and this stuff is very much lined up for them. But they're not chasing musical trends. 25 years ago, they were chasing musical trends because music was what was driving pop culture, right? Britney Spears was in the news every day and was in every magazine, and everybody talked about her because they were speculating what she's doing, not only with her music, but on stage, with her image, with this, with that. The rappers of the day, the Eminems, the Jay-Z's, the Puffies, whoever it may be, they were celebrities, and we'll get into this in a future episode, celebrities beyond. Nowadays, that generation is chasing lifestyle trends with music as the background. And it's not music first, and then what can I do while I'm listening to this music? So that creates very much like, I think their minds are open, but I think their minds are open in conjunction with something that's larger. Today, you had sent me an article from, what was it, NBC Now?
Yes.
That was talking about Gen Z, and Gen Z sort of pivoting back towards physical technology, older technology, analog technology, and physical media. And it was talking about how in the last, like the growth in the last 5 years of what we were just mentioning was these niche delivery methods of music. They're going back and buying vinyl records because they want to connect to the memories that they weren't able to experience themselves. They're revisiting it so they can connect with it, which I find fascinating. And it's interesting how that younger generation, all of the other streaming music and streaming television is pretty much like lined up for them to make their life more convenient, but still they find a way to sort of, I guess the ones that have like ingenuity to do so and the time to and the patience to do that, is to sort of like take a step out of it and say, I don't, you know, that's all well and good. It'll be there for me when I need it because it's on demand. But if I can search something out through a different way of discovery, a different way of listening to this, and even if I have to spend a couple $100 on, you know, a record player, which you actually don't, you could probably get one for like $30 somewhere. You probably have to probably have to spend that much for the records now. That's what's crazy about it. But if they're taking like that backwards path, I don't think we're ever going to see. It's never going to be even close to the numbers that even in the last year that they've done. Will never touch, you know, at their peak. But if they can sort of find a way to keep it thriving and not sort of like live under the radar of the record label and not have just an influx of like outside entities like polluting it, I think it's a nice thing to wax nostalgic over.
Yeah, I mean that's always the what if, I guess, is even if there was this uprising or whatever, however you want to say it, soar of, I'll say, my kids' generation, who now all of a sudden, you know, I don't want to just plug into my phone and have music as the background as I'm searching whatever, or I don't want just a 2-minute clip of a song that I'm watching on a TikTok or Instagram video. Like, I really want to get into like putting my phone away, like playing a record on a record player or listening to a CD, looking at, you know, the liner notes and all that stuff that we did. That's right. How we, you know, where they're kind of, I'm plugging away out of my phone in that world, but I'm plugging into this as a distraction rather than my phone, which is a million distractions all at once.
Right.
This is just basically one like I'm focusing myself on this record that I'm listening to, and I'm reading the liner notes and I'm following the lyrics or whatever, that the inside artwork or whatever it is. That would be great, but my biggest fear is that the people who are in charge are just going to fuck it up again. Yeah, because instead of, you know, it's going to be, well, how quickly can we monopolize, how
monetize quickly, this, right? Yeah.
How can we do? Okay, this is great that they're bringing CDs back. How do we get them to bring a DVD? But like, we got to tie it in and bring all of this back, and just saying, hey, you know what? This is great.
Just let it happen. Yeah.
Let it happen, and then let's see, maybe just gradually, just by, you know, the same way. I think it, you know, I think if you look at mine and your generation, there were a lot of people that maybe started off listening to music and then kind of got into movies, or maybe television was your first way of getting into whatever that type of world, and then, you know, you branched off into music or like instead of just letting it gradually happen, there will be like a, oh, we gotta bring video games up. We gotta bring every nostalgia. We gotta bring everything back from the last 50 years, and we have to do it right now because we gotta capitalize it while we gotta strike while the iron's hot. Right. Which is basically what kind of fucked themselves in the beginning.
So you nailed it. I think one part of this this news piece was about how it's 90s nostalgia, which might be the thing that's driving this movement. When we were in, you know, it was the 90s, when we were in high school and early part of college, there was 70s nostalgia. You had TV shows and movies and like bands that were like reviving the sounds and the images and all of that of the 70s. Everything is basically you're 20 or 30 years in real time, you're 20 or 30 years off from that being another nostalgia hit. The thing was that the nostalgia used to get driven by the people who, like, if I wanted to create a trend, you're right. It's very much like strike while the iron's hot, but it also floated up to the older generation and said, like, hey, older generation, you have to remember this too, because there wasn't so many, outshoots of, of digital media that was floating around that you could, like, all right, I'm not really into the nostalgia thing. I want to focus on, now I can just be a person that focuses only on sports. And I don't even know that there's a nostalgia revival going on because I figured out a way to consume nothing but sports because I've been allotted the pleasure as an on-demand lifestyle right now of everything I'm going to consume is sports, or everything I'm going to consume is Japanese animation or whatever it is. Like everything has been just sort of like a microcosm and a one-way filter into it. So here's the thing that's going to suck is that these younger generations that are starting to touch base with the nostalgia are just going to get sucked into, like, they'll create an industry around nostalgia. Not that they haven't already. Lord knows we're almost on the fringe of that. Everything we talk about is what the old days are anyway. Hey kids, you want to learn stuff about the old days? Listen to this podcast. But I fear that, like, there's larger entities that could really overexpose this, monetize it to a way where they price people out of it and ruin it for the rest of us. And there's no bleed down and there's no effect, and they're not buying it as a gift for you now or bringing you into it to say, like, hey, do you have old records? Like, I really want to check these out. It turns into, I saw it. I'll let you get to your point in a second, but I saw it when I was in Asbury over the summer. I'm walking on the boardwalk and they have a vintage record store. I walked into this vintage record store and it's not like it's used stuff. It's like a combination of used stuff, much less used stuff, but much more like the labels have now put these out and they are selling albums to these vintage stores. They were selling vinyl records for upwards of, like, the highest one that I saw, which was a single, like, 18-song CD or 18-song vinyl record for like $60.
Here's my thing, which goes back to, so 90s into 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, if you want to say that's the height of, well, definitely that's the height of CD sales, right?
Yeah.
Minimum wage job, you're making $5.05.
Yeah.
A CD costs you $9.99, $10 and something with tax.
Right.
So when that goes up to $18.99, it's almost $20 with tax, and minimum wage is now $5.25. You're basically kind of cutting off the people. Teens and early 20s were pretty much what drove music sales for a very long time. So now they're not allowed. You're basically outpricing them because now you're limiting. Instead of somebody going in with $20 and being able to buy two, now they're only getting one. So now your sales are going to. And you're right on. Like, now you're looking at what minimum wage in Jersey, I think it's $15 or $16. So generally speaking, if you want to keep competitive, you need to keep it around between $20 and $30.
Yeah.
But like you said, a lot of these reissues and I mean, yeah, you go in and buy a double album and stuff like that, but yeah, some of them, I mean, a single record in some places are like 30 something, and it's like, don't focus on, I don't know, like it's kind of hard because it's like, are teens and 20s you're going to be your main target, or are you still going after the older white crowd that is willing, that has the extra income, that is, all right, yeah, I remember when I used to buy records, and you know what, I actually liked records more than anything else, are we still targeting that audience, or are you going to start targeting the younger generation? If you're targeting younger generation, you're absolutely right. You cannot have records at $50 or $60.
Oh,
unless it's some sort of like, oh, this is a collectible. This is like, this is an actual record from the 50s and 60s. Like, we can prove that, the press date was like 1963 and they don't make this anymore. So it's a like, you can't be charging $60 for Led Zeppelin 1. Like, something that just came out of the factory a week ago. You know what I mean? Like,
but you'll
lose it. You'll lose that crowd. But by the time the stories that they're writing about the resurgence, if you keep it at that, you might as well just already start writing the
obituary.
Well, this is how it died again.
Yeah, right. So then to kind of like wrap things up and tie this in, I just wanted to go over my last set of stats for the last 24 years. Since 2000, of the artists that have the best-selling album of the year, in that 24-year period from 2000 to 2024, there were 13 different artists that had the best-selling album. There's a lot of repeats. Taylor Swift has had the best-selling album like 4 or 5 times. Adele has had the best-selling album like 3 or 4 times in that period. I think Eminem had a couple years where he had the best-selling album. The previous 25-year period, from 1975 to 1999, 23 out of 25 years of artists had a different artist was the best-selling artist of that year. That's a big indictment of the way that music is consumed, especially like full stop music is being consumed and marketed these days. That the popular artists get the lion's share of the retail sales, which, again, if we're comparing, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that NSYNC album, No Strings Attached, 9.9 million units sold in the year 2000. And then 2024, Taylor Swift, Tortured Poets Department, 3.5 million. So that's a big swing. That's a third of what NSYNC did. But it's still, there's something to be said about the variety of artists that are achieving the best sales of the year in this day and age. It's a guarantee that Swift is going to end up at the top of the list again this year, and probably for the next decade she'll be in the conversation. But that to me is crazy. And then even more nuts, there are no artists out of that 24-year period. None of those artists, not an NSYNC, not an Eminem, not a Britney Spears, not a Taylor Swift, none of those artists are in the top 10 selling albums of all time.
No, I mean, that's definitely...
It's skewed because it obviously, like, you're talking about more years that people were buying albums, and, you know...
Well, you're also talking, like, people bought... You had to buy it on vinyl, then you had to buy it on cassette, then you had to buy it on CD. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a lot of repeat sales. The only caveat I would give, like, would I argue the fact that the record label, because of what happened to the record industry, there's definitely not, there are not as many people out there looking for the next star. I almost equate it to like sports where like you don't have scouts. You don't have people going out there, going to clubs and trying to find a band or find an art. Like now, you're either letting them come to you, or somebody's just sitting on a computer going, "Hey, this person's got 5 million hits on their website about their like." You think about what the hell was it? I think it was Nat X or not Nat X. Nas X.
Little Nas X, yeah.
Little Nas X, like had a huge hit on his own without a record label.
Right.
And his song had millions of streams, and then everybody was out there trying to bid for, okay, I get to buy that song. Now I'm going to give you whatever amount of money you want.
Yeah.
And now you're going to record, and you're not going to put it on your shit. It's going to be on our shit. But
yeah. But who's buying it when it gets on your right? When you see, having a record label now means almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's basically like it's a landing spot to write off certain expenses, but they're not covering what they covered 30 years ago.
No.
And
in some ways it is a good thing that like I don't want there's a lot of artists that are like this, but I'll take a shot at I think the most criminal almost was Axl Rose / Guns N' Roses. 13 years in a recording studio making an album and wasting a countless amount of time and money and energy. I mean, a lot of people, there were guys that did that took 4 or 5 years in between making albums and spent ridiculous amount of money and hours and stuff, where I don't think labels don't have the patience for that anymore, nor are they ever, unless you better be Taylor Swift. And guess what? Like you spend that much time, it better sell when it gets out there.
Right.
Otherwise, you're never recording anything else ever again.
Well,
so it is a good thing that, like, in some ways, like, the bloatedness of the record industry isn't as there as much as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not, they're not looking to develop anybody anymore. They're not looking to, okay, we're gonna sign you to a 5-record deal. We understand that like the first couple of records, hopefully by your 3rd or 4th record, like now it's like, shit, if your first record's a dud, you're gone.
But that's what's crazy about it. So what's a dud? I'm paying a subscription fee. You better get as many streams, or you better get as many views on YouTube. Like,
here's a dud for you. Okay, you were on The Voice. You finished first on The Voice.
Yeah.
We signed you to a record deal. We put you on the opening slot on so and so's tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a year later, no one is your downloads are low. You're still the 3rd act on somebody else's tour.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're kind of like a thought after, because people are like, oh yeah, that's right, that person won The Voice, or that person won American Idol, or whatever.
Right.
Singing show. I know now there's like a country one that's coming out. Like that, to me, that's probably a dud, is that you had a lot of exposure. You were on a very well-watched TV show every week, and you didn't transfer that into, you're not Carrie Underwood. You're not whoever, whatever.
Clarkson, right, yeah. No,
or any of these country artists that started on a country show and now are hosting the CMAs. Like, you're 2 years into it, and
you got nothing to show for it. You never went viral. You never went... never blew up on your own. When we did put out your physical album, like, nobody went out to buy it. There's no buzz at radio.
You had a ton of, for some reason, you had a ton of people vote for you on a TV show, but those people didn't want to go out and actually see you.
Yeah, support you at all.
or listen to any of your music that you made.
Oh,
that
listen.
That would be a dud nowadays.
So we will have another episode. This is a 4-part series, by the way. We'll have another episode coming up in the coming weeks that goes into TV and radio and the impact that TV and radio are not having on artist development. So that's something. Let's put a pin in that one for now. Yeah. But to a lesser degree, though, it's not the world. The music retail world isn't the world that we were in at its height when it was, you have a packed store on a Saturday afternoon or even a full Saturday from the time that the gates open to the time the gates close. You're selling stuff. You have long lines because people are coming in, and buying CDs was the utmost importance to a younger audience. Those days are gone. They won't come back. Where people consume music has gone to a digital platform. I miss. There's elements to it that I hated when I was part of it, but there's elements to it that I'm like, man, like just to have the rush of being able to, put a CD on, have somebody like in store say, "Oh, this is really good. Who is this?" And you'd be able to answer that question, direct it to them, make other suggestions. Like it was the part of my life. I don't know if I speak for you, but it was the part of my life where I felt more like a tastemaker than any other part. And it's this sort of like drug that you want to chase. Once you have a taste of it, it's a drug you want to chase. And as we tackle more of these topics in this series, I think we're going to see a lot of these come up time and time again that, unfortunately, I think music is such an afterthought in people's lives that the industry has lost its way and it's on its ass trying to make money instead of making true fans.
Well, as much as I love technology. There were always parts of working at the music store that I really liked. Getting to meet, when there was those moments where like you had that repeat customer guy or girl that came in who would be like, "Oh, who I saw this person in concert.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good." And then you would listen to that, or you would make a suggestion, and you're kind of just like, yeah, like you said, you felt like, oh, I'm part of I'm like making a trend or whatever, I'm part of this kind of world in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
I think the underlying, which I'm sure will be in all 4 parts of our discussion about, I think you could take it into music. You could kind of take it into music and television, movies and television, and definitely in sports, is that the technology, because the people who are above it, the business people, are taking away the heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That is what was one of the biggest reasons that drove all these industries. They're taking that element out of it because it's cheaper. It's cheaper just to put data into an algorithm and all that stuff, or use AI to create some sort of generic marketing campaign or whatever it is. We'll get into it with, there's not as much content on your mainstream area to see new artists or hear new things. But I think that's the biggest thing, is that I look at it, I said it earlier with Napster. There was a moment there in the music industry, since we're talking about the music industry, where they could have embraced it. They could have tried to keep those people who were part of it for years and say, okay, here's your next challenge. How do we keep ourselves relevant with this.
Mm-hmm.
Go do it, because guess what? You're the same people who took, an industry that used to be in Woolworth and those little 5 and dime stores and turned it into this giant industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what you can do with this. And they didn't. They didn't trust those people. They waited too long. I vividly remember going to a meeting when I was a manager for the record store, and we had a managers meeting because the first Best Buys and Targets were opening in the New York, New Jersey area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And their thing was, instead of saying there's no way in hell that we're going to compete with these places selling the hits at cost, their strategy was, well, you go to Best Buy to buy a refrigerator.
Yes.
You don't go to a music store. Like, you don't go there to buy music. Like, you're going to trust our people. Like, if you really want to buy music, you come to us because we're the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, dude, like, you're not going to compete with, I can buy whatever the new release is at $9.99, and while I'm there, I can play with a digital camera, or I can play with computers, or I can watch this giant screen TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to even more worse decisions after that. So, but the biggest thing to me in all of it is that there were always like a human element that's part of it. And I think sometimes definitely with streaming services, and even, so a lot of social media where you think you might go and discover music, it's just more and more, I feel like there's just not even somebody, there's just like, it's war games. Like, there's some computer that's going, would you like to hear a song?
Yeah, right. And they're going to give you your answer right away. I have to think about it. They just spit it out and now go.
It's probably something I don't even want, or I don't like.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, that's the record industry. That's part 1 of this. Part 2, which we will get in on our next episode, we're going to tackle concerts. No previews on that one. We haven't done the research, but that is another sore subject when it comes to the decline of the music business, is these goddamn concerts and all that go into them. Good topic, good discussion. I hope you had fun talking about this, Captain.
Yes and no, because it's
depresses you.
It was a big part. You worked at a record store for a long time. I kind of worked at different times or different locations through, and it does kind of suck to think that they're not there. It's gone.
Yeah.
It may be a niche thing, but maybe you'll get one that pops up, or maybe a Jack's kind of survives for another couple of years or something like that. But it's not like what it used to be, where you could.
Set your watch to a new release date.
You spend the day. You could spend part of your day at Sam Goody, then go over to Compact Disc World, and then go somewhere else. Get 3 different. You get 3 different stores and 3 different vibes, and So it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of sad, but best thing is we still have the music.
That's right, we still do. All right. On that note, we will we'll take our leave from you this evening, and we will speak with you next week. I hope you have a great week, everybody. On behalf of the captain, this is Mike Madden. We will hope to see you soon.
Bye, Mike.
That's all right.